So we're moving forward with our Project Perfect Daily Driver, and we're starting to work out the choices. What hardware are we going to bolt onto this thing? So let's do carburetors today, induction systems. So the first thing I'm going to say is, you'll never hear me say this in any other video, if you're building a car for performance and economy, right, with great flexibility and all that, yeah, EFI might be a viable choice, right? You never heard me say that, right? In this situation, EFI could be viable, but not for us. A, because we're building on pretty much an extreme budget, and I'm a carburetor guy, and I like working with carburetors, and I know that I can get equal results. It's not as easy as doing it with the EFI, but I know I can do it. I'm not really looking for the easy way out. I like to tinker, and the liking to tinker fits into this equation greatly. So when trying to choose a carburetor to both get high miles per gallon and decent performance, the only logical choice is to go with a spread bore. Now, a spread bore carburetor, for you guys who don't, I know there's a lot of people who are new to this stuff and you don't really understand the difference in terminologies. A spread bore carburetor has very, very small primary bores and large secondary bores. So the purpose of this is exactly what it was designed for, performance and economy. When you're operating on just the small primary bores, you've got high velocity through the venturi, which means that you get very good atomization, and that high velocity continues at lower RPM down the runner and into the cylinder head. So you get more efficient filling at small throttle openings. That's the purpose of the spread bore. And of course, when you crack open the secondaries, these are a little stuck at the moment, but when you crack open the secondaries, you've got full flow. So this is a Rochester Quadrajet, and it flows approximately 650 to 700 CFM. And if you're looking for a completely bolt-on carburetor, right? In other words, like, you're not really going to tinker with it, you just want to stick it on the car and go, that's your best choice. For me, as a tinkerer, no, it's not a good choice. They're very flexible carburetors. But in order to do like a quick jet change or metering rod change or anything like that, the entire top of the carburetor has to be disassembled. It's not the kind of thing you can do in just a couple of minutes and be done with it. So as much as I love these carburetors, and I honestly do, I've got one on my wrecker, I love the thing. For the purposes of this build, we're not going to use this. So we're building a Mopar, right? The next logical choice would be the Thermoquad. So the Thermoquad has the same situation. It's a spread bore carburetor, has slightly bigger primary bores than the Rochester, but it's inconsequential. And the Thermoquad, I like to think of these, I refer to these as the last step in the evolution of the production carburetor. These were originally produced by Carter in 1968, late 1967, 1968. As a replacement, as a performance replacement for the Rochester Quadrajet. It has outboard mounted float bowls, where the Quadrajet has one small centrally mounted float bowl, and it has this phenolic resin float bowl. And what it does is it helps to dissipate heat. Vapor lock was a problem with the Quadrajet because it's aluminum and the float bowl is mounted centrally in the carburetor, so it would have heat soak problems. When Carter designed this thing, it was a performance replacement. It wasn't ever actually intended to be used as a street carburetor, a production carburetor. Chrysler later adopted it in 1971 and continued its evolution as a production carburetor. But these were originally designed as performance replacements for the Thermoquad, or for the Quadrajet. I love these carburetors. They're finicky to work with. You've got to be careful assembling them because of the plastic float bowl. They have issues. How can I explain it to you? They're a delicacy. They're a Mopar delicacy. A lot of guys who bolt them on and have no problems with them, but and if we were doing a Mopar only channel, I would say this is the way to go. We're going to build one of these things and that's it. But we're not a Mopar only channel. We're using Mopar as an example, right? This is supposed to be applicable to Fords, Chevys, AMCs, imports, whatever it is that you're going to build. The principles are going to be the same. So as much as I love these things, we're not going to use it for this application. I am going to do this one for my 73 Roadrunner, and at some point this carburetor may end up on the Swinger. I don't know. Or a thermoquad will end up on the Swinger. But for the purposes of this build, this is too obscure, too difficult to work with, too hard to find replacement parts for, to give this a shot now. So, okay, right away, I know a lot of people are going to go, oh, what about the Holley Street Demon? That's a thermoquad. Yes, the Holley Street Demon is an updated version of the thermoquad. And it has most of the thermoquad's good characteristics. It doesn't have the Flonic bowl. But the problem with that is that by the time you buy the carburetor, a jet kit for it, a metering rod, you know, tuning kit, tuning setup for it, gaskets and whatnot, you enter this thing for $500. We're not Motor Trend. People don't just give us parts. We're not here to sell you parts. If you've got the loot to go buy one, do it. They're good carburetors, and there's plenty of tuning guides you can find through Holley and other sources on YouTube. But we're dealing with guys that, you know, like us, we're working on a budget, out of the house. We're trying to find the cheapest way out. The cheapest way out. This is the one we've decided to work with on this project. So this is most of a spread bore Holley. It's a 650 CFM. It's actually this particular one is an exact replacement. It's a replacement for the thermoquad. It's got a Chrysler linkage arm, and it's important if you guys are adapting Holleys to Chrysler carburetors. The distance between the pivot and the throttle shaft and the throttle pin, this distance over here corresponds with the geometry of the gas pedal. So like if you took a Chevy oriented or a Chevy designated designed Holley carburetor and put it on a Chrysler and used that pin that's the hole that's generally like up here, put that pin in there, the geometry is off. You don't get full throttle. So this particular one is designed for use on the Chrysler, and while making small jetting changes isn't as easy as it is with the Carter, it's still only 4 screws to pop the bowl off, the slip fit secondary fuel line, and boom, you're there. So you can make a jet change in 5 minutes on going down the road, which is something I actually kind of do. I'll especially if I'm going to take a car to the track, I'll bring a set of jets, gaskets, whatever it is that I need, and through the course of the day, you play with the jets. You pop the bowl off. The temperature drops a little bit, air gets better. You go with a slightly bigger jet, and you maintain your performance that way. So for our purposes, we're going to be tuning for fuel economy. We're going to keep taking jet away from it until it has a lean stumble. Then we're going to start opening up spark plug gaps to try to make that stumble go away. And when we reach that ragged edge right there, we'll probably add just a tiny bit of jet to keep it on the happy side, and that's how I think we're going to get our 23, 24, 25 miles to the gallon I'm shooting for with this thing. So that's it. That's the carburetor we're gonna build for this particular build. And intake manifold. So gotta talk about the intake manifold. I don't have it here with me. The manifold that we're going to use is probably one of the worst performance intake manifolds ever built. I will absolutely guarantee that if you, let's say, you have a good aluminum aftermarket intake, let's say like a Performer RPM or one of those manifolds, swapping to this manifold will cost you 60 or 75 horsepower. It is a piece of shit, but it's perfect for what we're building. It's the Edelbrock SP2P. This was an intake manifold that was done by Edelbrock back during the second gas crisis, 1979, when fuel prices went through the roof, and there was still a ton of V8, still a ton of cars left over from the 60s and early 70s, with performance intake manifolds. And what this is, it's a small port SP, small port 2P, dual plane. So it's a tiny port with a super long runner and a moderately sized plenum. They'll work from idle to around 4,500, 5,000 RPM tops, and then after that you kind of hit a brick wall with it. I've used these intake manifolds in the past on 318s, and they do, like, it's their magic, okay? It's like you bolt this manifold on and you're going to pick up 4 or 5 miles to the gallon without doing anything else. So that's the manifold we're going to use. And even though it's restrictive as hell up on the top end, we don't really see spinning this motor past 5,050, 500. So this thing should work absolutely perfectly for our purposes, and we'll have that in our hands tomorrow or the next day. And the next installment, I'm going to take you through the short block. The shop is currently flooded right now. We had some torrential rains last night, so there's about an inch of water in the shop. Tomorrow we'll go through the short, what we found in the short block and all of that stuff. So that's it. Holly to go. See you tomorrow.